everyone. I'm here today with my good friend Kelli Rose, and she's one of my favorite people. Um,
Oh,
so, thank you, Kelli, for joining me, for agreeing to talk with me today.
you're welcome. Thank you for asking me. I'm very honored to have this conversation with you today.
So, you were the first person outside of my family that I shared this idea with. And
Oh,
yeah, you were so encouraging too, because I remember I just hit you up and I was like, hey, I'm going to want to chat with you because I love you so much.
yes, I
But
remember.
yeah, and so it was my campaign to the beginning of my campaign to spread love to my friends and just give shine to you all and how much I love y'all and the things that you're doing. So thank you for encouraging me and to have push me to step out. You were so sweet with your words. And so here
Oh,
we are.
yes. I know. I'm so proud of you. I remember when you first told me about this, and I was like, yes, do it. That's an awesome idea. And to just see what you've done already, like you've already done a number of these, like that's very cool. I'm very excited for you. So, and
Thank
I'm really excited to be able to have the conversation with you. So, thank you for asking me to do this.
Yes, of course. So I met you on Facebook, and
Mhm.
I remember when I used to tell my friends that I was meeting people on Facebook. It was
They were like, "What? Who are these
right,
people?"
right. Remember, like back in the day when people didn't want to disclose if they met someone like online and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. It was
Hmm.
taboo, but I've met so many great people,
Yeah.
and you were one of the first people that I did meet, and we really clicked.
Yeah.
And what I liked about you was the way that you were able to, what am I trying to say? The way that you were able to express yourself. And
Thank you.
you just have a really analytical mind. And so
Mhm.
I know that what I've been seeing you do is talk about television shows.
Yes.
And so it originally started on your page, or at least that's where I saw it, on your Facebook page,
Hmm.
where some of the, well, let's back up a bit. Before the Facebook page,
Hmm.
when we would be in these groups. And one of the main shows I remember us talking about in the groups was Insecure.
Hmm. Yes. Our favorite. Yes.
Our favorite. And so
Hmm.
it would elicit so many responses, like over thousands of responses, talking about this show. And, some people were Team Issa, some people were Team Lawrence. And then what you
Hmm.
started doing was breaking down the show on your page. Um,
Hmm.
so, can you talk a bit about some of the shows that inspire you to even do that, to even analyze them in that way?
Yes, sure. So I mean, I really started with Insecure, as you said, and I love that show. I love Issa Rae. I read her book. I was following her when she was doing her web series, Awkward Black Girl. So I have been watching that since, she was on just a YouTube person, right? So I was really excited when she got her show, and I watched it, and I would say that probably it wasn't until this season really that I really started breaking down each episode of the show. And yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things that I love about Insecure so much is that it's very relatable. I think even though the characters are, in terms of their chronological age, are younger than me, um, their storylines are very relatable. Like it's stuff that happened to me when I was in my 20s and 30s, the stuff that's still happening to me now as I'm like in my early 40s. And I think that I noticed how much other people were really into it, picking it apart, as you said, like choosing sides with the storylines and stuff like that. And so I definitely had my opinions. I've always been a very opinionated person, and I thought that it would be kind of cool to, just write about what my opinion of each of the episodes was, and to talk about like, well, this is my opinion of how Issa handled this, or I'm really not feeling Lawrence's episode, or whatever the case may be. So I started doing that on my page, and as you said, like people would just start engaging with me on those posts, and you know, people started being like, "Oh, where's your review?" After the episode was over, people would be like posting on my page, like, "Where's your recap?" Because I want to talk about this. So it just kind of took off. I'm very much a Facebook person. Like I'm not like I don't do Twitter or any of that kind of stuff, but I engage a lot on Facebook. So it was great for me to just like be in the place that I always was anyway, which is on Facebook and talking about the things that I really, wanted to talk about. So Insecure was definitely one of them. I also started reviewing Greenleaf. And so Greenleaf was a show that I was actually watching with my mom, right? It's like one of those shows that you could watch with different generations so Greenleaf was one that I also was inspired to analyze. The Shy, right? On Showtime. So I also started breaking that down. And I started a blog and a podcast based on my like breakdowns because it started to get like a very difficult to manage just on a Facebook page. Right. So it was a lot easier to kind of take it to a different platform. And so I started a blog and a podcast just off of those things, right? So it's been really a labor of love. I mean, my recaps take a long time for me to do, right? Because as you said, I'm analyzing them.
You're
right?
very detailed. Do you take notes while you're watching?
Yes, I take notes while I'm watching. Yep.
Yeah, because you're so detailed and to the point where, like, even if I don't watch something, like I'm like, okay, let me go back and watch, or like I would miss some things because I'm like, well, I didn't see that in the show. Let me go back and see what she's talking about. I didn't see that. So that's what I loved about your recaps, because it would take me, like, we would comment back and forth with people and give our opinions and our point of views. But I remember one time there was a point of view that I spoke about that I commented, and you were like, oh, I didn't think about that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I saw Kelli didn't see. Oh my gosh.
That's so funny. No, it's, people's comments on my recaps really brought out a lot about the shows that I didn't even see, right? Like I'm sitting there like breaking it down scene by scene, and then I would still miss stuff, or there would be stuff that like somebody would formulate an opinion and their opinion was like convincing enough that I changed my opinion about how something was, right? So it was just, I mean, it's a great way to bond with people over like a shared experience and a shared interest. And so, it's been really great for me. And so, in terms of, you were asking about like what shows inspire me. So those are like the scripted shows that inspire me, but I'm also really into reality shows, right? And so I just started a new podcast, recapping reality shows specifically. So it's turned into like a hobby of mine, right? To watch shows and break them down. So
yeah, I was I was just listening to the last episode of your reality podcast, and so that one is called Reality Rapup. And you have well, so then this is what's funny because there's a host and a co-host.
Yes. You heard that on the last episode.
I heard that on the last episode. And so you guys have a chemistry, like, so the host is Jones Master J, right?
Yes.
Jones Master J, and you call yourself Killer Kel.
Killer Kel, that's me, yes.
I absolutely love it. But let me tell you why I love it. So I was listening to the last episode, and I don't really watch reality TV. I used to be into all the Real Housewives and stuff like that, but I just don't really watch them anymore. And so I was listening, and I was like, oh, these guys are hilarious. And then the way you guys were describing, like you were talking about Ready to Love. And so the way you were describing like how the people looked and the way they were saying things and, the interactions between them, I was like, okay, let me go back and give this one a try. I tried it and I couldn't do it, but based on how they're talking about it, let me go back and give this one a try.
Oh, cool.
So then I listened to the episode before that, and you guys were talking about Real Housewives of Atlanta. And so I had given that one up a long time ago. Let me tell you why that name, Killer Kel, is so befitting. The read that you gave to Miss Kenya Moore.
It's like.
Well, first of all, I'm shocked that you said that you used to like Kenya, because I have never liked Kenya. I mean, I remember being a little girl and like being a brown skinned little girl when Kenya won her pageant, whatever. I think she was Miss USA, right? She wins the pageant. She becomes this like this, you know, dark skinned woman who won, and she was very much like a role model for, you know, certain girls just based on how she looked and what she represented and all of that. And I was so disappointed when she joined this show, and I was able to actually see what kind of a person she really is. She's a miserable person. Like, she just, hate, shade, constant, like, just snide remarks about anybody and everybody, like judgment or about what everyone else is doing. I mean, it's really disappointing.
I cannot stand Kenya. I'm sorry. So you will, if you listen to my podcast, you will find out I cannot stand Kenya and I can't hold back. So yes.
The read that you gave to Miss Kenya Moore, I could not stop laughing. And I said, that is my killer Kel right there.
Yes, ma'am. I told you I'm opinionated. I have no problem with sharing my opinions either. So, you know, that's one thing that I really love about social media, about blogging, about podcasting, is that like anybody can put their opinion out on a platform, and like people can either love it or they can hate it, right? Or agree with it or not. So first of all, thank you for listening to Reality Rapup. And so we just did our 4th episode. So it's brand new, right? And we're still feeling our way through it. You were talking about meeting people online and on Facebook. And so my host, the host of the show, Joe Master J, is somebody that I actually met on Facebook, right? And he started commenting on some of my posts that I would do with my recaps. And he was one of the only men who would comment, have like he's very opinionated about the reality shows. So when he approached me about doing a podcast, I was like, you know, this might be a good dynamic, because I do listen to other recap, recap podcasts. But most of them are women, right? And I mean, that's fine. Like, women have a voice. We have a lot we want to talk about and all that. But it is really refreshing to hear a man's perspective on some of the things that are happening on these reality shows. So
I agree. And he's also a comedian. So that's what makes it fun.
He is always saying something crazy too. Which is like,
I know. What is the latest show? Bling
Empire.
Bling Empire.
And when I was talking about House of Ho, he's like, a house of hoes. I'm like, no, not that kind of hoe. That's not the hoe I'm talking about.
He was like, oh, that's a double hoe. A hoe.
Yeah. Yes, he is so silly. And so, you know, I do think we have a good chemistry in that regard. Like, I mean, I think I can be funny, right? But I'm not a comedian. And like, he definitely is. So he says stuff that throws me off. We check each other. Like, we have a good, you know, rapport, I think. So
yeah, I agree. And so on Reality Rapup, like, what reality shows are you guys covering?
Mm-hmm. So we started off. So first of all, we are still feeling out our format, right? And we're still feeling out, like, what is this really going to be? What are going to be the elements of each episode that'll be consistent? And then, like, are we throwing in different stuff each time, or like, what are we doing? So what we did this time was we committed to reviewing a certain group of shows, and then every once in a while we'll throw in like another show that we might be watching. So the shows that we're watching right now consistently are Married at First Sight. We just finished Ready to Love, so they just had the 2-part reunion, and we recapped that on our last episode. We are also doing The Bachelor. And you know, ABC just chose the first Black Bachelor, so that's been an interesting, like, roller coaster ride with The Bachelor.
How many episodes are we in for The Bachelor?
This is also, I believe, week 4 for The Bachelor. So so we started right as The Bachelor was starting.
Okay.
Right? So yeah. So it's about 4 weeks in. We're also doing 90 Day Fiance. So those are our like consistent shows. And then we've also talked about some other stuff too as we went along. So like Joe Master J, he's like super, super into like game shows and stuff. So like at first he was doing like Name That Tune and The Masked Dancer and all these different things. And we decided that, you know, we wanted to keep our show to under an hour, and there was no way we could do that with everything that we're reviewing, right? The Housewives alone, right? That's another show that we committed to doing. I mean, that could take 20 minutes in itself, right? So
like, which Housewives are y'all doing? Like, you're doing all of, like, any Housewives show that comes on?
no. I only watch the Housewives with Black people in them, so I only watch Atlanta and Potomac, and I tried to watch Salt Lake City too because there is a Black woman who's on that show, but that show was I can't even do that. And I love reality show, but that one is even too much for me. So I just do Potomac and Atlanta, and Potomac is over. So right now we're just doing Atlanta. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry to back up a bit because we kind of jumped over your blog.
Yes.
We kind of jumped over that because the last thing that I had before coming on to talk to you was the Reality Rapup. That was the last thing I listened to. So it was fresh on my mind. But back to your blog. So you were doing it on your page and then you moved it to a blog site and then you started calling it
According to Kelli. Yes.
Okay. And then, so how many, are you still doing both the blog and the podcast or just the podcast?
Yeah, so it's been hard to keep up with everything. I mean, as I said, it's a labor of love. It's something that actually takes me a lot of time when I sit down and do a podcast episode or when I sit down and write a blog post. And so I haven't been keeping up with it. I haven't been as consistent as I want to be. And so, I try to choose a word every year. That's like my theme for the year. My theme for 2021 is consistency. So I'm trying to get back on board with both my blog posts and my podcast. So right now, my focus has really been on Reality Rapup and kind of getting that off the ground. And I've been doing some recaps on back on my Facebook page again, right? The challenge, I think, with blogging and podcasting is building an audience. And, you go through all this work, right, to create content, and then there's not a lot of people that are looking at it if you don't push it, and that's like a full-time job, you know what I mean? So trying to manage 3 of those efforts was just too much. So right now I'm focused on Reality Rapup, trying to get that off the ground. Occasionally I will every once in a while post on my blog, but I haven't done a podcast episode of According to Kelli since the summer, really. So got to get back on board with that.
Yeah, and I know that Insecure is I don't know when they're coming back on, but I saw that it's going to be their final episode. Oh, I'm so sad about that.
I am so sad. I'm so sad, but at the same time, I feel like, it's better to end on a high, right? And everybody loves it right now. And you don't want to get to the point where people are sick of your show and then you're like, okay, now we're done, right? So end it on a high note. But I am sad because I really look forward to the show. When the season is in play, I look forward to the show every week. I look forward to doing the recaps and talking to people about it. So I'll be sad when it's done.
Yeah, because like you said earlier, I learned about Issa when she was Awkward Black Girl as well on YouTube, and it was relatable to me too because it wasn't those tired same storylines of people trying to get out of the ghetto and kind of I was over that. We've seen all of those, and so it was something new and refreshing, and I could see myself in a lot of the things that she was doing. A young Rose trying to get her footing in a career and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, that's me. I'm an awkward Black girl.
Yes. I know. I could really relate to it. And I think that's one of the things that I really just love about Insecure is that it is just Black people just being regular people, right? It's like we have the same regular everyday struggles as everybody else. And I feel like that's what the show really depicted, was just us going about our everyday lives. And, this is what happens when you're in your 30s and you're single and, you got a group of friends and there's drama going on with them and your boyfriend is acting crazy and whatever else. So I really love that. And I want to see more shows like that. I know there are other shows that are kind of out there that haven't really picked up the way Insecure did. So, I mean, maybe we'll see more content like that now that people have been able to see the success of a story like Insecure.
Right. And I just love that it started on YouTube. Nobody was doing, well, I won't say nobody, but there weren't any shows that were picking up like her show was picking up on YouTube.
Right.
And so she started putting other content on there, other shows and whatnot. And then it would get to a point where they're like, okay, we need to finish this. And so we're hoping that you could donate to our cause to help finish it. And people would donate. I was going to write something about her. But I saw that the first time that they did that, they got $59,000 in donations from viewers to finish out their season. I was like, that's awesome. That is so awesome. And that goes to show you that, you know, people are looking for that kind of content. They want that. Yeah.
Yes. They're thirsty for that kind of content. I mean, it's not really, you don't really see it. The internet has made it so that there are all these people who are creating content, right? And they have control over what it is that they create. And so it was really inspiring that what she created, the mainstream saw a need for that and, you know, really pushed her forward. So I hope that they're like out there looking for scouting other talent. I mean, there are other people who have great web series on, you know, on YouTube, I'm sure. Right. So, you know, hopefully some folks will be able to follow in Issa's footsteps and we'll have some more quality programming, because that's one thing I really miss. I feel like, you know, back in the 90s and even like the early 2000s, there were a lot of like TV shows that were about Black people, and I don't see that really anymore, you know?
Right. Yeah, we were going down like me and Darren, we were going down like all these shows that we used to watch, like, you know, the Martins and the show with Pop and the two boys. You know what I'm talking about?
Pop and the two boys.
The comedians, the Wayans brothers, the brothers.
Yes, right. Yeah,
Living
like
Single,
CW,
all
Network,
that.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like The Game. I mean, even you know, shows like that. Like there were just so many different Girlfriends. Yes. You know, I was really happy to see that Netflix was bringing some of those shows back. And I actually had considered recapping some of those shows, going back and recapping some of those shows.
Well,
and I may still do that.
I've seen people, you know, because I went back, I revisited Girlfriends when it came back on Netflix, and people, we were talking about it like it was the first time we were watching it. And it felt like that though, because it's been a while. And again, we're looking for that type of content where we can see ourselves in these issues and whatnot. And so that's what's catching our attention. Hear that, guys? Hear that, content creators?
Yes, exactly. Get on it. Like, create some content that we can be talking about. So yeah, I mean, that tells you a lot, right? That people will go back to a show that they've already seen to watch it again just because they're thirsty for that kind of content, right? So like somebody needs to be out there creating that and needs to be putting that type of stuff forward. So my fingers are crossed that we'll see more of it, right? Yes. That's one of the reasons why I was saying, you know, we're recapping Ready to Love, as you said, on Reality Rapup. And one of the things I really love about Ready to Love is that it's all Black people. Like, you don't really see, you know, dating shows that are focused only on Black people. And so that's refreshing to see. You know, the reason why The Bachelor right now is such a topic of conversation is because Matt James is the first Black Bachelor, right? And this is like season 25 or something. Right. So when you think about that, like, that's a little crazy that he's the first one. You know, we're still doing first in 2021, which is crazy, even in TV, you know? Crazy. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So I did see that you did a recap of Bridgerton.
Yes.
And that was a hot topic too. People, when did that come out? Because you did yours last year, your recap.
Yeah, it came out in December.
It feels like
so
that was so long ago.
I know, it came out in December. And, you know, it broke all kinds of records when it came out. And I mean, it was like a perfect storm in terms of the right timing because everybody was at home. You know, it was during the holidays, we're quarantined. So like people are looking for good content on Netflix. And so, yeah, Bridgerton was a hot topic. And once again, I think one of the reasons why it caught on was because of the fact that there was representation of other races in this, you know, Jacobean era or whatever. I think that's what that era is called. It's not the Victorian era, so it's one of the other ones. So, you know, you don't normally see people of color in that time period. And so what I was saying is I normally, when I see stuff like that, those period pieces, I don't watch it. Cause I'm just like,
same,
boring. Like I don't relate, you know what I mean? But I really related to Bridgerton. I thought it was entertaining. I loved seeing once again, Black people just being normal people, right? Like it was like, not a big deal that there were Black people at the debutante ball or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't the servants, you know, it was like, or the slaves. It was like, literally they were, you know, part of nobility. So that was great to see. And kudos to Shonda Rhimes for, you know, doing that and getting that out there. And the fact that it did so well is just another example of the fact that people are thirsty for that kind of content.
Exactly. And then, you know, like you said too, it was good to see representation and being a regular part of the cast. And I think that for some people, I mean, including me too, because I have to catch myself sometimes, like when I do see stuff like that, then I feel like, this is not like Black people wouldn't have been dancing
Right.
and going to these balls.
This is not realistic.
Not realistic. Yes. Yes. And then I
Yeah.
have to catch myself because I'm like, it's we're allowed to have things. It's not real. So we can make it whatever we want it to be.
Exactly. Yes. I totally agree with you. And I feel like sometimes what ends up happening, particularly when you're talking about TV shows or movies that are dealing with Black people, we always want it to be realistic, right? We're like, this isn't realistic. This would never happen. I'm like, but how many movies and shows are out there that are just fantastical? Like, it's stuff that literally would never happen. And you can do that when it's fiction. You can do that when it's a made up story. And that's okay. You know what I mean? So that probably this wasn't historically accurate, but I'm okay with that, right?
I'm okay with it too. And I'm even more okay because Shonda Rhimes had that issue with ABC, and when you read about it, it seemed like it was a little thing, but I'm sure it was, it wasn't the only thing.
No.
Right. And so the fact that this has taken off, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Look what you missed.
Yes.
Look what you missed.
I know. That makes it even sweeter, right? That she was successful away from outside of that network. And yes, I mean, like you said, it seemed like a small thing, but I'm sure that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and that there was a lot more that went into that than what we even know. Mm-hmm. But when you think about the fact that Shonda Rhimes is like a cash cow for that network, or had been, even if it was a small thing, they should have been willing to do what she asked them to do, right? Like, I mean, it just seems that like she has the pull to be able to do that. And, the fact that people try to make it seem like she was ungrateful for that, or, like whatever the, narrative was, that she could walk away and go somewhere else and do even better was just like such a win. I love that.
Yes. Black woman.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I say that I'm not even the biggest fan of Shonda shows, right? Like, I was not a Scandal person. Like, I wasn't, I'm not a big fan of her shows, but I can sincerely appreciate her power moves that she makes. Yep. And the fact that she is like full of she is a creative person. I mean, these stories just come out of her, like,
pumps them out. Yeah. And I wasn't, I would start her shows, but I didn't finish. Like, I started Scandal, and I started How to Get Away with Murder. I never was really into Grey's Anatomy, but I know people really loved Grey's. So
yes. And it's still on. Did you know that? I did not know that. It's still on. People are still watching it. Yes.
I gotta go back and see how many seasons, because remember like ER and stuff like that. Like, I used to love ER, and I know that was on forever, and I still watch Law and Order, all the repeats, all the new.
Yep, me too. Me too. Yes, I don't know how many seasons Grey's Anatomy has been on, but it's been on for a long time. And I just saw somebody recently like, "Ooh, Grey's tonight was so good." I'm like, Grey's Anatomy? Like, I didn't even know that. So yeah, she's still, pumping those stories out. So
that's great. I know she has a lot of them still in her. So I'm cheering with Shonda.
Me too, girl. Me too. We need more Shonda. So
yes, we do, and we need more breakdowns from Miss Kelli as well.
Yes. Well, I mean, I definitely plan to, continue. As I said, like, consistency is my word for this year. So I will be going back to my blog. I'll be going back to my own podcast, and then really trying to work on growing Reality Rapup, because I do think that, as you said, like Joan Master J and I, we have our good vibe going, and I think that we can really take it somewhere. Right now, it's audio only, and we're testing out video as well. So we are going to try to see if we can add that component to it. So, we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah, that'll be cool if it's video, because listening, it reminded me of like a radio show, because I'm still a radio girl, because I like to hear what they talk about. People call in or they'll have a question, and people will call in and stuff like that. And so that's what it reminded me of, a radio show. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I like listening to them, even though I don't watch any of this stuff they're talking about.
You're like, I don't know none of these shows, but I'm going to listen to the podcast anyway.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate your support of the podcast and of my blog and everything. I mean, it means a lot to me. And, it's interesting you say that it reminds you of a radio show, because, my major in college was journalism. I really wanted to do broadcast broadcast journalism. It's something that I've just like always been really passionate about and really interested in, and just never kind of took the step to do that. And, you know, that's one of the things that I'm saying, like the internet empowers us all to be able to do these things that we never like thought was, you know, within our realm of possibility. Now it is. I mean, it's, with a click of a button, you can publish a podcast and have it out to the world, and whoever wants to hear it can hear it. So it's exciting to be able to do that, and, you know, to live out that dream that I had that I hadn't followed before now. So
yeah, so you're doing a good job, and I just wanted to, you know, give you some shine on that and tell you how great I think you're doing, and that I'm here to support, you know. And I think it would be good, you know, in a few weeks if you come back on, and maybe we can have Joan. I keep wanting
Joan
to say,
Master J.
Thank you. I keep wanting to say Jam Master J, and I'm sure that's why he picked it, because it was similar.
Right. Yeah.
Joan Master J, and we just have a good chat. I think that'll be fun.
Oh yeah, that'll be cool. I'm sure he would love to do that. So first of all, I think he would love to do that. But yeah, I think it would be great for us to come back. And I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. And as I said, always supporting me. I really appreciate that. And I just want you to know that I think you're doing an amazing job. And I think it's so sweet and kind of you to give people this platform to be able to talk about, you know, just what they're doing and what their passions are, you know, because our passions are the things that mean the most to us, right? So getting an opportunity to just talk about it, you know, and that somebody cares enough to ask questions about it and want to listen to what we have to say, I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Love you, girl.
Love you too.
Okay.